Hello, everybody. You'll have to forgive me. I just got through eating dinner, and there is breaking news tonight. Very tragic news in the world of the NFL and American football in general. The former head coach of the Oakland Raiders and the great legendary broadcaster John Madden has passed away today at the age of 85. They have not released yet why he passed away. Apparently, from what I have read, the illness has been sudden, and the news just broke less than an hour ago, probably within the last 30 minutes, I would assume. What can you say? He is synonymous with the National Football League. His video game is arguably the most popular sports video game, and maybe even one of the most popular video games, period, of all time. And when you look at his history, from being a assistant coach with the Raiders in the 60s all the way to becoming the head coach as a young man, to eventually giving up coaching because of his fear of flying. I think it had more to do with claustrophobia than anything else. He just didn't like being in an enclosed space that much. It is a stunning news. You know, he's one of those people you knew eventually was going to pass away. You just didn't expect it this soon. He retired at the end of the 2008 season. Super Bowl 43, I believe, was his last game he did. So he's been retired for 10 years. He was basically spent the last few years of his life out in California on his ranch, spending time with his grandchildren and his family, doing specials from time to time and interviews and all of that. They had just, this past weekend on Fox, did a documentary called Old Madden. I didn't get a chance to see it, unfortunately, but I've heard rave reviews. It's supposed to be released next week on ESPN Plus, Peacock, and not sure what the other one is. I said the other day. It may be Amazon Prime, I'm not sure. But that might be moved up given what we've seen. Obviously, right now, no funeral details have been released. But it is a very sad day in the history of the NFL for John Madden to pass on at the age of 85 after a long and storied career as a broadcaster and before that as a coach. The impact on the game, well, let's face it, you know, I grew up with John Madden doing football games on CBS with Pat Summerall. And that was the team in the 80s. You know, and obviously him being a head coach for the Raiders was before my time, but I knew of them, of his time there. He was a very successful coach. I believe he is still has the highest winning percentage, or he's easily within the top 2 or 3, because he was very successful. The only reason he left was because of what I mentioned before, the claustrophobia, I believe, of being in a airplane that derailed his career. He moved on to broadcasting because he could take a train or a bus, later, of course, a bus, the famous Madden Cruiser, and what can you say? I mean, he, you know, all the specials. He did a ton of commercials over the years. Obviously, the Madden NFL game, legendary. He will be missed by football fans of 3 to 4 generations, if not more. I mean, he played in the 50s, coached in the 60s and 70s, and was a broadcaster in the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. And had his health allowed him to, and his, he probably would have kept on going a few more years, but he realized traveling cross country by a bus for a man in his I believe he was 70s at the time, wasn't exactly the way he wanted to spend his golden years. So he stepped down at the end of, I think it was Super Bowl 43, if I'm not mistaken. It was in Tampa. It was one Pittsburgh, the second one they won the last decade. The good one for Ben Roethlisberger. Not the bad one, Super Bowl 40, which they won it, but Ben Roethlisberger had the worst performance of a Super Bowl winning quarterback ever. But this was the good one, by the way. A very exciting game. For many of us of a certain generation, we grew up with a team of Summerall and Madden and all the great moments, so many of them. First at CBS, and later when CBS lost the NFC to Fox, they moved over to Fox, and they were there from 94 to 2001 when Pat Summerall left the broadcast booth, at least full time, and John Madden moved on to be the broadcaster be the analyst for Monday Night Football for several years there, and then he moved on to Sunday Night Football on ABC, following Al Michaels to NBC, and then he subsequently retired a short time later to replace by Chris Collinsworth. And we all know that legends die, greats die, even the best of us, no matter how old we get. There is a time for everybody, and this is one of those times that it's going to be something that is going to be remembered for a very, very, very long time. And I imagine that the tributes will be taking up the rest of the week. It's obviously going to eclipse a lot of what's going on in sports radio and the news for at least the rest of the night. This is obviously a slow news week, being between Christmas and New Year's. So there's not really much going on in the news. So this is going to be big news in sports, big news in general. So he is someone who is going to be missed in not just sports, but in pop culture too. I mean, like I said earlier, he was the man behind the most successful sports video game of all time, and maybe arguably the most successful video game period of all time. I'm not a video game expert. There are more people more inclined to give a verdict on that, but it's obviously the most successful sports video game of all time in Madden football. And now he's no longer with us. And that booming voice, the larger-than-life personality, is no longer with us. And for many of us of that certain generation who grew up watching Summerall and Madden call games on CBS, calling Super Bowls, it is a very sad night indeed. And obviously, he is going to be missed by his family and friends, but just as much by the entire American football family and sports in general across the country. So I wanted to jump on here to pay a little tribute to John Madden. There'll be plenty of other people doing that far better than I can do it, but I just wanted to come on here to do that, to mark the passing. And we'll talk more about football things and such at a later date. But goodbye, Coach. Rest in peace. And hope you and Pat are having one at the bar one last time. For everybody here, good night, good luck. May the good news be yours.